Jackson, Bennett, and Haley walked closely together as they all smiled at once at something funny Jackson said. If you're wondering what was happening, these three had been friends since they were 5. They lived in the same neighborhood, and luckily for their friendship, their houses were beside each other. Jackson was the funniest and the most playful among the three, while Bennett was considered the most rational among them. Bennett was always quiet and only chipped in their conversation whenever necessary. He didn't know how to make jokes like Jackson, but Jackson always made him laugh whenever he wanted to. Haley was known as the princess of the group. She was particularly aggressive and pretty at the same time. She was a little bit short, about 5 feet, so her height was always significantly different from that of Jackson's and Bennett's, who were about 6 feet tall. However, the three made such good friends that they had been named the Three Musketeers in school. If there was anything Haley was good at, that would be having the ability to quickly notice that something about the people around her is wrong. She was so good at studying people that she was confident about being right about the people around her. So recently she had been noticing something off about her 2 friends. Did they fight again? Are they trying to keep it from me this time? Why are these 2 giving me these awkward glances? Why are they suddenly acting conscious whenever I'm around? What is going on here? Well, these questions constantly disturbed Haley's mind, but she had no one to answer them for her. All she could do was continue guessing while she hoped everything would be okay between them again. She had been friends with the 2 for a long time, so she couldn't imagine her life in the future without them actually in it. It had been 2 months since the 2 had started acting strange, like they were keeping something from her. They would both give her awkward glances simultaneously and look away simultaneously. This was beginning to get confusing and troubling for Haley, so she decided to summon her courage and ask the 2 what was up with them. Are you 2 good? Haley spoke up as they approached their school. Good? What do you mean? Don't we seem good? Jackson spoke up with confusion, while Bennett also gave Haley the same confused face that showed, what do you mean? I'm sorry if this seems like I'm prying, but I think I can still ask as a friend of the 2 of you. You both know how I'm never wrong with guessing the emotions of people around me, right? I can tell there's a little tension between you 2, which is beginning to affect me. This tension is unlike all the other tensions that had dissipated between the 2 of you whenever we had all these fights. I've been sensing this for about 2 months now, and it's taking too much time to resolve it. Can you guys tell me what happened? Maybe I can be of help. Our friendship seems fake with this tension between you, and I don't like it. Is there something I can do to ease the tension? After everything Haley had to say about easing the tension in their friendship, she was shocked and hurt when the other 2 cleanly avoided the conversation by quickly running off for their various classes. Haley was dumbfounded as she looked at the back of her 2 friends running off in 2 different directions into school. That wasn't how their friendship was. She knew that all too well. Jackson and Bennett were so close you would always see the 2 together. They would even try their best to ensure that they go to the same class together during the same time. With how quiet Bennett seemed, their friendship was so close that Jackson would always find reasons to disturb and upset him, and that had always been the source of joy for Haley. But now the 2 acted like they didn't know each other. They were okay with going to different classes and doing their things differently while still pretending to her that they were excellent. Even someone who wasn't as brilliant as Haley would have quickly noticed that something was wrong in their midst. Jackson, enough of these hide-and-seek games. We need to talk right now, Haley screamed after Jackson, who had been trying to avoid her all day at school. I'm not hiding, Shorty. I've just been busy with some stuff, Jackson said with a cheeky smile as he slowly turned around to face Haley's feigned angry face. I guess you will have to spare me some minutes out of your busy schedule. I won't take up much of your time. I also have another person to hunt down, Haley told him as she dragged him into an empty classroom where they could talk better. Since both of them made it impossible for her to speak to them together, she decided to go to them separately as long as she could have her 2 friends back. What is going on, Jack? And please don't give me the bullshit that everything is fine. What's happening between you and Ben? Haley asked him tenderly, with curiosity. Shorty, please don't force it. You may end up getting hurt if you find out the truth, Jackson said wearily, while this did nothing to dissipate the curiosity in Haley. Instead, it escalated it. Now you're getting me more interested. What is that big thing that will get me hurt that the both of you seem to think I shouldn't know about? She asked him. I think Bennett is beginning to open up to people, but my fear is that these people don't include us. I heard him talking about something he shouldn't be talking about 2 months ago, and I've been angry with him for that, Jackson said. I still don't get you, Jack. I mean, it's a good thing that Ben is learning to socialize. I wouldn't mind if he decided not to open up to me, though I think I would be a little hurt. But we both want his social growth, so I think that would still be okay. But what was it he was talking about that he shouldn't talk about? To whom? Haley asked with confusion. Well, this is a sour topic for you, so I've avoided speaking to you about it, but I wasn't angry about Ben making new friends. As you said, it's a good thing. I was angry about what he was using to make his friends. Jackson said, well, all these things did was to confuse Haley all the more. I still don't understand what you're talking about, she told him. I heard Ben talking about the issues you have in your family to the people in the senior class. That is why I'm so angry with him. It's so wrong, Jackson said finally, while Haley felt like she couldn't breathe again when she heard what was happening. The issues happening in her family had always been a sour topic for her, as Jackson stated. Though she may seem happy outside her family, wasn't the best family to give her that kind of joy. She got it all from her friends, and it seemed like one of those friends was betraying her already while using her most painful weakness. Well, how could he? Are you sure you heard him right? Haley asked with uncertainty. She didn't want to believe that about Bennett, but she knew Jackson probably wouldn't lie to her. I am very sure of what I'm saying. That is why I've been avoiding speaking to you about it. I know you'd be hurt to hear this, Jackson said while hugging Haley to comfort her. She gladly accepted the hug as she cried into Jackson's chest. Her family wasn't the best, and she knew that perfectly well without needing someone to point it out to her again. No day would go by without her parents having conflicts. She grew up in that house, and because she wanted to be the best for herself, she tried to grow up in a good way so that her parents' way of life wouldn't affect her. She never talked about that topic to anyone except those she considered her close friends, Bennett and Jackson. However, now it seemed to her like she could have been wrong about calling Bennett her close friend after hearing what Jackson talked about. She was hurt more because all the feelings she had harbored for Bennett had been shattered. She had been quietly falling for Bennett, but she didn't want that to ruin their friendship, so she kept it to herself. Now, the company she was trying too hard to hold had been destroyed by the guy she thought would be the best for her. I know you've been hurt right now, Shorty, but don't worry about anything. You will be fine. I will always be there for you. I'll fight whoever tries to use what Ben said against you in school. You do not need to worry. Jackson consoled Haley while all she did was keep quiet as she wallowed in what now seemed to be her new reality. She had lost one of her friends. She had lost the guy she loved, even before she professed her love to him. Shorty, why have you been avoiding me? I know we weren't supposed to ignore you yesterday, and I'm sorry. But what is wrong? Bennett asked Haley while calling her the name they created for her in their friendship. I have nothing to talk to you about, Ben. I heard you've made new friends while using me as the topic. You can go on with your new friendship, she said as she tried her best not to have eye contact with him. Now you're getting me confused. What do you mean by that? I have no new friends, and I thought you knew that already. Why would I use you to make new friends? I'm lost here, Bennett said with confusion. When Haley heard this, she was also confused at how confused Bennett was at the moment. Or was he pretending to be confused? Haley didn't know what to think, but fortunately for her at the moment, Jackson stumbled upon where they were. Thank God you're here, Jack. No matter how I try to ignore this, we need to clarify some things to Ben. Tell him about what you told me yesterday, Haley said as she looked expectantly at Jackson while Jackson seemed to want the land to swallow him up right where he was standing. All these things just confused Haley the more. What lies you tell her, Jack? Bennett spoke up to Jackson while Haley just stood in confusion about where she was. She didn't know what was happening anymore. The two banter on and on for a while until Haley finally catches on to what happened between the two. So apparently they both ended up falling for her, and they didn't know how to keep that between themselves without affecting their friendship. This went on until Jackson took matters into his own hands. He wanted Haley for himself and would do anything to end their friendship with Bennett. That seemed like the first step for him to cut Bennett off the tail of the person she liked. That was why he framed Bennett up. When Haley heard this, she was so hurt again, but deep down she was happy that the guy she liked had her back. However, she was hurt that she had just lost her trust and friend in Jackson, but she didn't let that stop her from showing Bennett that she liked him. And just like that, the two clicked and became a couple. At the same time, Jackson was so angry that his plan failed, and he stopped being friends with them.
As soon as Tina's husband died, a whole series of trials collapsed on her family. Tina had to raise her daughter Kira on her own, delve into the family business, and solve all the problems that her husband, Alex, used to deal with. Not only was Alex's death a devastating blow for Tina, but her daughter's personal life began to bring trouble. Tina did not have time to raise her daughter, so the bright feelings of love became strong for Tina. Tina considers herself the happiest in the world. She would have a loving husband. They had been together since September when they, first-year students, were sent to help harvest the harvest. Hardworking and dexterous, Alex, who immediately relieved the girls from the suffering of carrying buckets with beets and potatoes, was liked by many then. However, he did not openly show signs of sympathy to anyone. Knowing from his father and grandfather the tricks of life in weather conditions, the boy spoiled everything with incredibly delicious food. Several times, with the permission of the mentor, he and several other students went fishing, and then the chefs of the local canteen prepared fragrant fish soup. Much later, when he and Tina became young specialists and even celebrated their 5-year wedding anniversary, he, in response to the news of the long-awaited pregnancy, admitted that he fell in love with her as soon as he saw her. You know, my dear, when I was looking at the field then, the girls try not to overexert themselves, and you, so focused but not gloomy, you carefully fold this beetroot, even if you need to shake off the dirt a little. I worked with some kind of joy, and when I smiled at some joke I told, I realized that I didn't need anyone else. Tina went on maternity leave from the position of a design engineer, and Alex realized that his salary at the plant would clearly not be enough for the family. Together with his friends, he got involved in the business development. Of all the viable options, the companions chose to trade in equipment necessary for active recreation and sports. Enthusiastic young people were able to attract the attention of fishermen, athletes, as well as lovers of hiking and long trips to nature. One store was followed by another. The partners expanded the variety of goods, looked for dependable firms, and then Alex turned into Mr. Alex for his subordinates and opened a workshop for the production of goods for tourism. His own experience was useful to him, and although not many believed in his success, the business turned out to be profitable. The family didn't need anything. Beautiful daughter Kira was pleased with her father's success at school, and she went to music with pleasure. She did a little choreography for the soul. Tina, realizing that combining work, which took an hour and a half twice a day to commute to, meant little time in the status of a housewife, and then, with the full support of her husband, opened a shop with sewing goods. The family could not be counted as super rich, but material prosperity was stable. Wealth, even fortune, appeared suddenly. Once upon a time, Alex, rather from some instinct than after a rational miscalculation, bought several suburban plots for almost nothing, and then was able to successfully sell them. So he got another kind of earnings, and in addition to all his studies, he opened a real estate agency. Happy years flew by with the blink of an eye. From poor young professionals, Tina and Alex had turned into very wealthy people. We built a compact but cozy house, located so that the city is just around the corner. Now Kira's daughter had become a student. They bought her an apartment so that when she gets married, the family would not have any problems with housing. Everything had changed, but the feelings of Tina and Alex remained as tender as before, and love in general, as it seemed to them, has become even stronger. However, 2 years ago, Tina suddenly became a widow. Alex lost control on the icy road and died on the scene. Tina vaguely remembered that dark period. She tried to hold on for the sake of her daughter, who adored her father, and, in memory of her beloved husband, tried to preserve his trading and real estate business. She had to delve into a huge number of details and nuances, but such a full load helped to distract her to such an extent that she simply did not have the strength to mourn her beloved. She sometimes had the thought that now she had to pay for years of happiness. Tina sometimes moped, and during such periods did not even go outside the precinct. Fortunately, it is possible to keep an eye on the state of the business remotely, and there is always work on Earth. So, Tina worked in the garden, then in the greenhouse, finding at least some comfort in physical activities. The only people she has always had, of course, daughter Kira, Mary, her husband's younger sister, and her family. The sister-in-law was almost 17 years younger, but they communicated perfectly, having long become not only friends, but also remarkably close. During one of the meetings, when Mary decided to give herself a break from household chores and came to her brother's widow, Tina confessed to her, "You know, Mary, life probably spoiled me for a reason up to the age of 46. Most likely it was not a gift of fate, but her oversight. Now she decided to put up a severe bill for everything. Sometimes it's a sinful thing to think that I don't want anything else. That's just Kira holding, but you, I can't leave you." Don't think like that, Tina. We all feel bad without Alex, but he would definitely be unhappy with your thoughts. Moreover, Kira needs you now, the wrong one, more than ever. She has become quite an adult with us, a bride. Yesterday, I saw her with a guy in a cafe. Her eyes were shining, her face was shining, a real beauty. So, my dear, it is probably necessary for you and me to prepare for a new joy. Mary's words hit Tina in the heart. How did she not notice any changes in her daughter? And after all, as Tina understood with annoyance now, she, as a mother, had to ask for a long time why her daughter suddenly began to return home much later. Yes, Mary, it looks like I'm a worthless mom. In fact, Kira also began to dress up longer before leaving the house. A week ago, I asked for my favorite perfume. It's awkward because she didn't come for perfume. She probably wanted to talk to me. And I waved my hand towards the dressing table saying, "Take what you want and don't bother me." Don't blame yourself, Tina. I think Kira doesn't take offense at you. She's a smart girl here. It's a pity that she is late. We would have asked her about this guy together with you. Well, I have to run. It's a pity, you know. Let's meet on Friday at 7. Take your men and come to us for the whole weekend. We, like Alex, left and we're not going to barbecue with a bathhouse. Well done, Tina. Great idea. I will warn my sons and my husband not to plan anything. We'll stay together and maybe Kira will invite her beau. They would have arranged a visit for him. Tina would have been happy to talk longer, but a taxi had already arrived for Mary, and she hurried back to her playful 3-year-old twin sons, whom she left had her husband to look after. Tina, handing her sister-in-law souvenirs for the boys, sat down to think about the upcoming conversation with her daughter. Tina, of course, realized that her wonderful daughter had grown up a long time ago. There is nothing unnatural in the appearance of Kira's beau, because when else to fall in love than at the age of 20? Once she and Alex were worried that their beautiful schoolgirl daughter would get her head turned by some classmate, but the girl somehow took the issue of admission to an interesting university very seriously. While many of her peers were already starting to meet guys in an adult way, Kira was gnawing on the granite of science, and she also helped Tina with the choice of fabrics and unusual accessories. And I must say, most often the daughter's extraordinary ideas turned out to be successful. Alex always admired Kira's diligence, and in conversations with his wife noted, "Well done, Kira," because she knew that he would have paid for her studies at any institute, and she herself decided to make her way. Memories of her husband again touched Tina's emotional wound, and she, immersed in unhappy thoughts, did not even notice how the front door slammed. Tina broke her concentration when Kira entered the kitchen, who asked in an excited voice, "Mom, why are you sitting in the dark? Is everything okay?" Tina started up, and despite the protests of her daughter, who said that she would warm up the food, she began to set the table. Tina watched with emotion as the hungry girl ate her dinner with an appetite and restrained herself with all her might not to ask Kira who she was dating. At the table, Tina asked, I invited Mary and the guys to us for the weekend. Let's come up with something interesting and delicious besides the wings." Tina hoped that her daughter would take the opportunity to talk about her boyfriend, and the idea came true. Kira's cheeks turned slightly red, and she confessed, "Mom, I agreed to go on a date with a guy on Saturday. We met him at Catherine's when she was celebrating her driver's license." Tina smiled encouragingly, but did not ask anything, so as not to scare off the moment of frankness, and Kira continued, "His name is Stephen Kirsten. He is a cousin of the guy Bethany, so don't frown at Mommy. I've made all the inquiries. A good guy. He works. He has his own furniture store. More precisely, as Bethany said, the store belongs to her parents, according to the documents, but they entrusted it to Stephen 6 months ago. He is 30 years old, was married, but they broke up. He has no children." Did I find out all the necessary information? Tina felt pride and a certain challenge in her daughter's voice, but she bit her tongue in time, deciding not to quarrel and not to teach her grown-up blood. And with the most joyful intonation praised, just a good girl. If you want, you can invite Stephen to dinner with us on Saturday, but of course I won't say a word of reproach to you if you prefer a date. Mommy, you're just lovely. I'll probably invite Stephen, but I'm afraid he'll think I'm pushing him to propose. He seems to be making hints to me, saying that he has never met such a girl and would like to spend his whole life next to me. No, he'll definitely think I'm rushing him, so most likely I'll just quickly run off on a date. Then I'll come home to chat with Mary and tinker with the boys. I hope you'll persuade them to stay overnight, right?" Tina smiled. "Of course, with an overnight stay. But if you don't want to push Stephen to a decisive act, then probably you really shouldn't invite him. Wait, take a closer look at him. There's no hurry. So far, can you at least show me his picture? They probably took selfies." "Of course now." Kira sat down next to her mother on the sofa and handed her smartphone. Tina flipped through the photos and realized that she did not like her daughter's boyfriend at all. No, outwardly he looked quite neat, even over the top. In one of the pictures, Tina even noticed that the man's nails were polished. But the way he looked at Kira did not suit her categorically. The negative emotions were subconscious, but Tina was simply convinced that Stephen was not in love with her daughter at all. In the morning, after Kira rushed off to study, Tina called her sister-in-law and briefly recounted the conversation with her daughter. Tina tried to explain her doubts. "You know, Mary, he seems to be smiling in the pictures, but his eyes are empty. Or there was a frame where Kira does not cling, and he looks at her with such a malicious smile of a winner, a nasty type. Although, according to my daughter, he is very courteous, so I invited him to visit. Together, we will be able to ask him about everything and consider what kind of bird he is." No, Mary, Kira's right. He can also go all in, make an offer in front of everyone. It seems like so that he could do it flawlessly. Well, try to find out more about him. After discussing the problem a little more, the relatives said goodbye. Tina did not stop thinking about her daughter's fate, and the woman had an idea. She found out the address of Stephen's furniture store and ordered a taxi to its location. While waiting for the car, Tina dressed up in the clothes in which she worked in the garden, but did not have time to wash, and went to the salon in the form of just a lady with low income. The pretty saleswoman Helga, who would have been more suited to the profession of a model, tried to restrain herself at the sight of a not-too-presentable visitor, but she could not completely hide her disappointment. Tina walked around the salon and then asked the girl, "Excuse me, Helga, can you get some kind of discount on this bedroom furniture?" The beauty's face became haughty as she said, "I'm sorry, but we don't have discounts. These are the rules of our store." Tina pretended not to notice the contempt and asked, "If possible, arrange a meeting with the owner for me. I will personally ask for a discount." After some bickering, Helga stepped aside. The girl, as Tina guessed, called Stephen's reception. And a few minutes later she informed Tina, "Go straight down the hall, then turn right. There will be a reception room. Mr. Kirsten is busy right now. Wait to get through, but I'll tell you right away, it's unlikely you'll get a discount. It's better to go to another store. We have a salon of Italian furniture, and almost all models are exclusive." Tina thanked the girl and went to the reception room, which turned out to be empty. The door to the store owner's office was ajar, but a few minutes later, a slightly disheveled secretary of no less model type than the seller came out. "Hello," Tina said politely. "Can I see Mr. Kirsten about the discount?" "Oh, I don't even know." The girl turned on her heels and looked into the office from which she had just left and asked, "There is a visitor here about a discount. Let her come to you." A loud baritone voice replied, "Not now, baby. You know, I need to come to my senses and make the coffee stronger. Tell them to wait." It became quite obvious to Tina that Kira's boyfriend had just been having fun right at the workplace. But she still decided to look at Stephen to get an idea of how he behaves with people. She had to wait for almost an hour, during which the secretary did not bother to offer her either tea or even water. Communication with Stephen also did not work out. As soon as the secretary, apparently having read the message from the boss on the computer, allowed Tina to go to the director, he barely heard the request for a discount, rudely interrupted the woman, "I don't do handouts. Go to the market somewhere. There's plywood furniture and just for a purse like yours." Tina returned home in an unbelievably bad mood. She really didn't like the fact that when dating Tina, Stephen is not at all shy about maintaining a relationship with his secretary. In addition, the manner of his conversation with potential buyers clearly indicated that the business was unlikely to last long. By connecting friends, Tina found out that the man had brought the furniture store to the brink of ruin in 6 months, and besides, he had large debts after the closure of his business. However, recently he began to ask creditors for an exceedingly small delay, explaining that he had seduced a rich girl. Very soon he would have corrected his financial situation and would return everything with interest. Tina tried to explain to Kira what Stephen was like, and had to persuade the girl to bring him to a family evening on Saturday. "Daughter, I wish you only the best, so invite this person, and you will see his true character." The spectacle really turned out to be enchanting. Stephen, seeing the elegant Tina, bowed and even stretched out his hand to her, and then, listening to the voice, recognized the visitor who asked for a discount. Tina invited him and said, "Well, Mr. Kirsten, come in and look at my plywood furniture." Losing his composure, the unlucky boyfriend left the store, almost sprawling on a flower bed. Even Kira couldn't help but smile as she watched Stephen flee. Tina was glad that she was able to save her from a big mistake, and Kira would definitely meet a decent man who would love her. The first day of spring turned out to be extremely damp and dank. The same gray and boring was the life of a young woman who looked out of the window longingly this early morning. Elizabeth was sitting on the sagging sofa in the tiny kitchen, drinking cold tea and finishing a piece of yesterday's apple pie. Today, she turned 31 years old, and this simple breakfast on the kitchen table was all she could afford at the moment. Before blowing out the candle, she thought about what to wish for and whispered aloud the cherished words, "I want life in our family to get better." The cake seemed tasteless to the birthday girl, and the tea tasteless. It used to be different. And it was not at all about the variety of apples or cinnamon. Elizabeth was widowed a year ago. Her husband Steve was knocked down by a pedestrian crossing by some scoundrel when he was returning home from work. It was in the evening, and none of the random passers-by remembered the car's license plate number. Elizabeth found out about the tragedy in the morning when she returned from the night shift. They'd had a happy marriage. The lack of money and eternal debts did not prevent the spouses from sincerely loving each other. They'd been together since high school. The awkward junior in high school named Steve immediately liked a classmate who transferred to the school from another school. For her sake, Steve fell in love with reading books, became interested in classical music, and became interested in sports. Now, it was difficult to recognize Steve because love transformed him. Trying to match his beloved, Steve began to take part in the social life of the school, carefully prepared homework, and stayed up late in the library. But that's not how Steve won Elizabeth's heart. She was always there at a difficult moment, and Elizabeth quickly got used to the fact that she could always rely on him. Unbeknownst to herself, she fell in love with this shy young man who on the day they met could not connect 2 words. After finishing school, Steve and Elizabeth decided not to break up and entered the same university together. But the trouble is, Steve couldn't keep up his grades and joined the army. Elizabeth was not at all frightened by the difficulties that arose, and she firmly decided to wait for her beloved. The year flew by unnoticed, and when Steve paid his debt to the motherland, he and Elizabeth got married. 9 months later, they had a new baby, who they named Andrew. After a while, Elizabeth was forced to transfer to the correspondence department, and Steve got a job as a handyman at a construction site. At first, everything went like clockwork, and the young family had enough money. They even managed to save money. Everything collapsed in an instant when Steve lost a high-paying job. It turned out that his boss was illegally building a housing complex in the city center. The news that Elizabeth's mother Margaret was seriously ill finally upset their family. Margaret was diagnosed with cancer, and the woman needed an urgent operation. All the savings of their young family went to her treatment and rehabilitation. She even had to sell a house in the village where the family liked to spend weekends. Fortunately, the surgery helped, and Margaret soon went on the mend. But then a new disaster happened, from which their family could not recover. The sudden death of Steve undermined the emotional state of Elizabeth, who did not know how to live on. Together with her husband, confidence in the future finally died in her. Elizabeth held on only for the sake of her son and old mother, who were always there and supported her, and now she was sitting in the kitchen, sipping tea, and thinking about how worthless life is. For many, worthlessness is the lack of money, career, personal life, and so on. But for Elizabeth, worthlessness consisted in a lack of purpose in life. Her aspirations and desires were shattered and broken in a crushing way on the day when she saw her husband's lifeless face. The woman hoped to the last that this was a terrible joke, a stupid medical mistake, and her Steve was actually alive. He will enter the house as before, pick up his son in his arms, and kiss his wife. A single tear rolled down her cheek from the old memories of a once happy life. Now the woman dreamed only of a good life. No, not for herself at all. Andrew and the old mother. That's who Elizabeth was thinking about in the first place. This thought was firmly rooted in her mind a couple of days ago after meeting with a classmate. She met Nancy quite by chance at the supermarket, where she ran in for a minute to get milk and fresh buns with raisins for Andrew. For a moment, she admired the woman who was walking towards her. Her confident, calm gait and the click of her heels made many men turn around. But the woman didn't seem to notice anyone around her. She was concentrating on choosing cheese, fruit, and a jar of caviar, putting the products in her basket. Elizabeth did not immediately recognize the stylishly dressed woman as a mischievous, ungainly girl with whom she sat at the same desk all her school years. No, Nancy was not a universally recognized beauty like Elizabeth, but there was something in her gaze that attracted men like a magnet. Styled hair, scarlet lipstick, expensive perfume, gold jewelry, and the latest iPhone model literally screamed about her solvency. With her manicured fingers, she traced the label on the expensive champagne, intently studying what was written. Then she neatly added the bottle to her purchases. Elizabeth felt embarrassed for her appearance, disheveled hair and dark circles under her eyes. She hurried past so as not to catch Nancy's eye, but accidentally caught the woman with her elbow. "Excuse me." Elizabeth apologized as she walked by, praying to all the gods that Nancy wouldn't recognize her. "It's okay, it happens," Nancy answered mechanically. But after looking closely at the face of a random passerby, she suddenly made a discovery for herself. "Elizabeth? Elizabeth Wilson, it's you! How many years? How many winters? Listen, I'm so glad to see you. Let's sit in a cafe and chat. Oh, only first, to the register. Otherwise, the guard is already looking suspiciously at us," Nancy hastily said in a voice that did not tolerate rejection. Her nimble fingers had already wrapped around Elizabeth's arm, and she was being led to the exit of the supermarket. "Hi, Nancy. You're still the same chatterbox." Elizabeth laughed sincerely for the first time in a long time. After ordering a latte and a tiramisu for two, Nancy talked incessantly about herself and her life. It turned out that she has her own business. She helped wealthy people find good servants who would carefully clean the mansions and keep quiet about what was happening outside their walls. She always liked to talk, and Elizabeth loved to listen. This was the secret of their school friendship. Yes, that's enough about me. Tell me, how are you doing? Married? Are there any children? I was married, and now I'm a widow. An accident a year ago. My husband was hit by a car. Now I live with my mother and son Andrew. He's a smart boy growing up, and he will go to school this year. God, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Nancy apologized hurriedly, even though she was a giggler, a gossip girl, and even a flirt. But no human emotion was foreign to her. And are you working? No way. Without work experience, they'll only let me clean the floors, Elizabeth replied sharply. Floors. Now that's an idea. Nancy pondered. Let me help you with the work. I have one customer here, and he urgently needs a maid, and as luck would have it, all the girls are busy. Well, I don't even know if I can handle it. Of course you can, because you've been awfully clean since childhood. Besides, he pays a lot of money, and your son is going to school this year, and your mother is old, you said yourself. So think carefully. You will work for a couple of months, and you will run around beauty salons and buy toys for the child. Well, Nancy, you can even persuade a deaf person. Okay, I agree, Elizabeth replied, thinking that a good salary would not hurt her in any way. Believe me, this job will be like a breath of fresh air for you. It's a pleasure to put things in order in such houses. Crystal antiques, expensive paintings are everywhere, and if you try, you'll get some poor guy. Just choose prettier and richer, so you will become a hostess. What are you saying? After Steve died, I don't even want to look at other men. That's stupid. You are a young, beautiful woman. You also need to think about yourself. And your son still needs a father. For a boy, the example of a serious and accomplished man is extremely important. Maybe you're right. But I'm not ready for a relationship yet. Oh, Lizzie, what would you do without me? Well, never mind. We will quickly direct your life for the better. How nice it is to feel like a fairy godmother. Nancy, but I have no one to leave my son to. Mom hasn't been feeling well lately, and it will be hard for her to sit with him. What to do? Advise me. I will talk to the customer and explain the whole situation. Perhaps he will allow you to move with your son. Nan, you're great. I'm so grateful to you, Elizabeth exclaimed happily, feeling that life was beginning to improve. The next few days were agonizing, and waiting was the hardest for the young woman. Not knowing what to do with herself, she was rushing around the apartment like a tiger in a cage. Elizabeth already began to think that there was no mating, and the sorceress named Nancy she just dreamed. When the phone rang in her apartment a few days later, Elizabeth rushed to the phone. Her whole life depended on the decision at the other end of the wire. Well, Lizzie, congratulations to you. Now you're officially employed. Pack your things. You and your son are moving into John Clark's country house today, and tomorrow morning you start your direct duties. Thank you, Nancy. From our whole family, thank you. Don't thank me, don't. I should be thanking you. I've been looking for a friend like you, so come on, don't be sour, but get ready as soon as possible. John Clark doesn't like to wait. But Elizabeth didn't hear anything more. She was like a little girl floating in the clouds. Hurriedly packing her things, she circled around the room and hummed. Lizzie, it's quite unexpected to see you in such a mood. Has something happened? Elizabeth's mother asked, sincerely rejoicing for her daughter, who has never smiled since the day her husband died. Mommy dear, life is getting better. I got a job. Oh, I'm so happy for you, my daughter. I finally see you having fun. Trust me, Steve wanted you to be happy again. I loved your late husband like my own son, but he left us, and it was very painful for me to watch you depressed. I'm sorry, Mom. I promise I won't hurt you, Lizzie agreed, realizing that she was bringing pain to her family with prolonged suffering. When a black foreign car picked up Elizabeth and Andrew in the evening, Elizabeth felt like Cinderella, who finally had a chance to go to the royal ball. The country mansion of J. Clark's was like a small medieval castle. A huge park, a small pond, shady alleys, along which it must be so pleasant to walk in good weather, drew Elizabeth's attention. The big gray building in which he and his son were to live did not look creepy and unfriendly at all. The polite and courteous owner of the mansion, a man slightly over 50 years old, was already expecting a new assistant around the house. The former maid could no longer handle her duties for health reasons. After learning that Elizabeth has a child, the man did not mind at all that she moved with her son. Despite his wealth and success in business, he was extremely unhappy. In his youth, he lost the woman he loved, with whom he felt so happy. Envious bridemaids had slandered him, and the bride believed every word. Pride surged in John's heart, and he did not even try to keep his beloved. Years passed, and success and fame quickly came to him, but real, sincere love no longer knocked on his door. He got married twice, but all in vain. None of his wives could give him a long-awaited heir to whom he could transfer all his affairs. Disappointed in women, he plunged headfirst into work, and when he woke up, he realized that he had wasted my best years. He had houses, apartments, bank accounts, but did not have the most important thing, a big, strong, and loving family, which he dreamed of so much. Lizzie and her son immediately took root in his house. Children's laughter, the patter of Andrew's little feet, and Elizabeth's friendly smile filled the old mansion with light and warmth. Elizabeth cooked well and spoiled everyone with fragrant pastries on weekends. In his spare time, John was happy to tinker with the boy, imagining himself as a caring grandfather. He told him interesting stories about his travels, built a toy railway, and even performed the role of a horse, riding a little prankster on his back. From the outside, they looked like a real family. Yes, but it was impossible. Elizabeth's mother always said that her father was a pilot and crashed during an exercise. But one incident made Elizabeth doubt the truthfulness of her mother's words. One day, while cleaning the office, Elizabeth found her childhood photo on the desk. There could be no mistake. The card depicted a girl with an upturned freckled nose and dressed in a pretty canary-colored dress. But why is her picture here? Thinking about it, she got all worked up. Talking about his youth, John Clark mentioned a lover named Margaret, with whom he was divorced by a villainous fate. Was that woman her mother, and Lizzie his daughter? Thoughts did not give her rest, and then Elizabeth decided to invite her mother to the mansion, citing the fact that Andrew missed his beloved grandmother. The very next day, Margaret appeared in the house. At that moment, she still had no idea what kind of surprise fate would give her. "Mommy, tell me the whole truth. Who is my father, and did he die?" "Lizzie, why such questions? I've told you 100 times that he was a pilot." "But then what is my photo doing in John Clark's office?" "I see you've turned pale. You know that name, don't you?" "What did you have in common? Is he really my father?" "Daughter, calm down. Since you know everything, I'll tell you the truth. We really were a wonderful couple once. But after he cheated on me, our wedding didn't take place. I left him and then realized that I was pregnant. Out of anger, I wanted to get rid of the child, but at the last moment I changed my mind. Yes, Lizzie, he's your real father and Andrew's grandfather, but he is a terrible person, and it's better that you never see each other again." "Mom, I just found my father and you want to deprive me of him?" Elizabeth said angrily. "How could you hide the truth from me? He wasn't cheating on you at all. It's just that your girlfriends were jealous of your happiness, so they made it up, and you believed it. Fate itself brought us together." "Actually, it's not fate," a man's voice came from behind. "A year ago, I found out that my ex-lover secretly gave birth to a child from me. I've been looking for you all this time, Lizzie. And believe me, our meeting is not accidental. I am incredibly proud to have such a wonderful daughter and grandson. And you, Margot, forgive me. I was really loyal to you. I was young, stupid, and did not appreciate his happiness. Years have passed, but I still love you. Maybe we still have a chance for happiness. We may not be young anymore, but we have many wonderful moments ahead of us." "Darling, how stupid we were. I also love you more than life," Margaret replied, snuggling up to his sturdy shoulder. That's how fate gave two lovers a chance to be happy again. And Elizabeth has learned a simple truth for herself. There is no need to be afraid to love and to be loved. Love does not tolerate timidity. After all, tomorrow may never come. And she also knew for sure that Steve was looking at her from heaven and blessing her to try to be happy again.
Daisy was passionate about sewing another dress on a sewing machine. She loved sewing and making new clothes for people. Her favorite work allowed her to temporarily forget her poor existence, her father's illness, and that the world was unfair to her. Daisy was trying to spend more time at work because she was not happy at home. Her mother had already died, and her father was very ill. But most of all, the girl was frightened and upset by her older brother Harry. He didn't work anywhere, only drank, and waited for Daisy to bring the money. Her sick father could not influence his son, and the girl was too weak to stand up to her older brother. Daisy was afraid to move out of the house because her father would be left unattended. She also feared her brother's revenge. Harry took most of the girl's money, so she couldn't save up. But Daisy wasn't depressed. She worked hard, just like her mother taught her. Chief fashion designer Mr. Atman noted Daisy's diligence and passion for the profession. She was no longer to sew, but to paint new models, offer ideas, and help choose fabrics and accessories. Daisy was proud of her new position at 22. She would very much like to share the joy with her mother. Her mother taught her to sew and instilled a love for modeling and sewing clothes. But her mother died and did not see how intelligent and beautiful her daughter had grown up. Before Daisy climbed the career ladder, she worked as a seamstress with her friend Angela. When Mr. Atman announced that Daisy would now assist him with his new collection, there was no limit to the girl's happiness. Daisy immediately shared with Angela the glad tidings, but for some reason, her friend did not support her and said, "Mr. Atman made you his assistant too quickly. I've been working here longer than you." "Angela, I'd like to get your job, but it's not up to me." So Daisy started making excuses. Angela relented and asked to see Daisy's sketches for Mr. Atman. "What beautiful dresses," said Angela. "You have natural talent." Mr. Atman made the right choice. "Your models look fresh and original." "Well done." Angela looked closely at every sketch of the dress. Daisy was embarrassed by the praise. She was delighted that her friend no longer resented her. The next day, Daisy came to work on her album. She wore a dress that she made herself. It was her favorite dress. It emphasized her beautiful figure, and more importantly, it gave a lovely mood. All night, Daisy drew sketches for Mr. Atman's collection. Daisy knocked and entered the head designer's office. She saw not only Mr. Atman, but Angela in the office room. She had a sketchbook in her hand. Daisy saw it and stopped. Angela's drawings were very similar to Daisy's. Her friend just stole her ideas and pretended to be hers. "Look, Daisy, Angela's ideas are so authentic. How will you please me?" Mr. Atman addressed her. Daisy was very disappointed with her friend's betrayal and could not open her file. She could barely untie the clasps on the cheap cardboard folder. Mr. Atman picked up the sheets, frowned, and began comparing them with Angela's sketches. "She stole my ideas," Angela screamed. "I didn't expect you to do that." But Daisy couldn't say a word. Not only did Angela steal her ideas, but she accused Daisy of stealing. "No doubt Daisy's drawings are more expressive, but I don't need artistic skills, I need original ideas," said Mr. Atman. Daisy was silent. "That's terrible, Daisy," said Mr. Atman. "It's the thieving that angers me the most, especially when people steal ideas." All of Mr. Atman's image was distressing because he liked Daisy for her hard work. "You can't expect anything good from her," said Angela. "Her family is poor and her brother is a thief." Tears poured out of Daisy's eyes. The girl ran out of the office, not understanding where she was going because of the veil of tears. Daisy couldn't keep working for Mr. Atman. She was ashamed, though she wasn't the thief. Daisy was on her way home, thinking how she would tell her father and brother that she had lost her job. So cruelly, she thought, maybe she should have stayed and worked as a seamstress. But no, Daisy couldn't stay because she was wrongly accused of stealing. With every step, Daisy made it harder to come home. Finally, she arrived. The doors were open. It scared Daisy. The girl gently entered the house. In the kitchen, the older brother was sitting and drinking alcohol. "Daisy! Hello. When will you bring the money?" Harry asked. Daisy didn't answer anything and went back to the room where her father used to sit, but her father wasn't there. Daisy went back to the kitchen and asked, "Where's Dad, Harry?" "Oh, our old man must be dead. The doctors took him. He was wheezing a long time. I didn't have time for him," said Harry on the whiskey glass. "The booze won't wait." Daisy's legs hurt. She wanted to hit her brother with hate, but he was much stronger than her. Her brother could have beaten her if she'd just scolded him. "I'm going to my dad's," Daisy said. "Whatever you want, dear sister, but it would have been nice to have some money first for your beloved brother." Daisy ran out of the house. She had little money in her purse, quit her job, and now she was thinking about how to get to the hospital. Daisy stood by the road in despair and looked for passing cars. A car stopped. A young man was sitting in the car. He lowered the window of the vehicle and asked loudly, "Excuse me, am I on the right way to the hospital?" Daisy's heart was racing. "Yes, you're going right." Suddenly, she decided to ask for help and said, "I have to go there, too, urgently. Could you give me a lift?" "Of course, I'd be happy to help," said the lad. "I have very little money," said Daisy. "Don't worry, girl. You show me the way and that'll be enough," said the lad. "My name's Mick." "I'm Daisy," said the girl, and got into the car. The guy turned out to be friendly. He said he would visit his uncle. The guy noticed that Daisy was sorrowful. Mick asked the girl what was wrong with her. Daisy suddenly told him about her friend's betrayal, her dismissal, and her father's illness. "You know, Daisy, I had a rough patch too. I was blind once. We looked for reasons but couldn't find any. I gave myself my word that I would one day see again. One day, after a relentless search and endless visits, the doctors gave its result, and I began to see again." "Cool. You're a strong man," said Daisy. "Thank you. I was making a point, and it wasn't for nothing, because today I figured out why I got my sight back. To see a beautiful girl like you." Daisy was embarrassed by the guy's words and didn't know what to say. "What do you dream of?" Mick asked. "I dream that one day I will create my collection. These will be dresses in which girls and women will bloom like flowers." "It's a wonderful dream," said Mick. "Believe in yourself. My aunt runs the atelier, of course, not as big as Mr. Atwood's agency." "I didn't know," said Daisy. She felt ashamed for telling a guy her problems she didn't know, and grateful for the sympathy at the same time. When the young people got out of the car, Mick gave Daisy a card with her aunt's contacts and urged her to call. Their paths diverged. Daisy needed to find her father. She saw how bad he looked when she entered her father's room. The old man did not immediately hear that Daisy had come in. The girl gently touched her father's hand, and her father opened his eyes. "Hello, Daisy." "Hello, my flower," said her father. His voice was feeble. "Dad, how are you feeling?" Daisy asked. "I'm sick and keeping you from your work. Daisy, you must go to work." Daisy could not say that she had quit. She knew the truth could have killed her father. She could not have disturbed him at that time. "Dad, you'll be fine," said Daisy. The doctor's conversation was disappointing. Father needed expensive treatment, and she had no money. Daisy was very sorry for letting her older brother take the money. They'd have gotten a lot of money if it weren't for Harry. But alas, the family did not have any savings. Daisy promised the doctor that she would bring the necessary amount, although she did not know how she would do it. Daisy walked home on foot because she had no money for a taxi. She had nowhere to go. Despite her sad mood, Daisy noticed the beauty of nature. She was mentally trying to dress on women who walked past her. Did Daisy think about her mom? What would she say to her? Would she understand if Daisy gave up her dreams? The girl decided to go to Mick's aunt's studio. The next day, Daisy came to Mr. Morris's studio. Being terrified at first, she stepped into the building. At Morrison's atelier, Things were not the same as at Atmund's. Instead of fuss and creative colors, there was an atmosphere of comfort and tranquility. No one was shouting at the seamstress or throwing sketches, as Mr. Atmund sometimes did. This should be Mr. Morrison, the girl understood. "Hello, Daisy," said. "I was told I came to see you. If you had a job as a seamstress, I have some experience." "Hello," said Mrs. Morrison. "We have a job. Where did you work before?" "At Mr. Atmund's," said Daisy. "Oh, so you're the Daisy fashion designer who stole other people's ideas," said the owner. All the employees of the shop immediately looked at Daisy with curiosity. "Mr. Atmund strongly advised me not to hire you," continued Mrs. Morrison. Daisy's heart seemed to stop. She wanted to run away, but her feet were stuck to the floor. She thought she was ashamed. She was bitter that Mr. Atmund made sure she didn't have a job. How could she prove it? Mr. Atmund knows more about fabrics than humans. Can a lovely lady steal ideas? That's ridiculous. Let Mr. Atmund give recommendations to whoever he wants, but I'll hire you. Daisy thought for a moment she heard wrong. Mrs. Morrison was hiring her? Daisy's joy was endless, and she waited to breathe because she was believed. "I'll take anything," said Daisy. Tears of gratitude made themselves felt. "Thank you." "You'll thank me later," said Mrs. Morrison, "while I give you some simple assignments, because I need to see you in action." Daisy took up her job with enthusiasm. She did her favorite thing again. Even when performing simple orders, she sometimes allowed herself to advise on selecting fabric and how to change the cut so that the dress or suit fit better. Mrs. Morrison was surprisingly receptive to information, not arguing. The payment for her father's treatment was near, and she had not yet earned any money. Daisy went to the bank but was turned down. She didn't dare ask for a loan, and who would she ask? By the end of the week, Mrs. Morrison called Daisy. "Daisy, look, this is my best client. She urgently needs a dress for her nephew's christening. I decided to give you the order, okay?" "Of course, I'll do my best," said Daisy. It was the first full-scale order at that studio. Daisy tried her best, and the dress turned out fantastic. It was as strict as possible, but it did not hide the woman's beauty. The client was so pleased that she paid generously for the order and added a few tips. Mrs. Morrison gave all the money to Daisy, saying, "Daisy, you've earned that money. I'm proud of you and myself for not playing along with Mr. Atmund." Daisy was happy because she now had the money to pay for some of her father's treatment. She was afraid to go home with her money because her older brother was there and could have taken the cash. Daisy went straight to the hospital after work. There she met Mick by chance. "What a pleasure to see you again, Daisy," said the lad. "Nice to see you too," said Daisy. "Thank you." "Why?" Mick was surprised. "You gave me Mrs. Morrison's card, and now I work for her," said Daisy. "Oh, so you're the intelligent, beautiful, extraordinarily talented girl my aunt tells me about every day." Daisy blushed. She didn't know Mrs. Morrison spoke so highly of her. "Well, I'm happy you're working for my aunt, but don't forget one thing," said Mick. "What?" Daisy asked. "Don't forget your dream of a collection. I'd like to see it," said the lad. Daisy felt that she had forgotten her dream. Daisy worked hard. Her father was on the mend. As time passed, Daisy suggested to Mrs. Morrison that she create her collection of dresses. The girl showed sketches that greatly inspired the owner of the studio. In a short time, the Violet Group was created and created a furor in the fashion world. Daisy not only entered the fashion world, but also proved to everyone that she did not steal ideas. Time puts everything in its place.
I repeat once again, Miss Logan has looked around the class. It's not even a misdemeanor, it's a crime. Stealing money from a teacher is a disgrace to the whole school. We'll have to search every student. Mr. Andrews, the head of security, walked up to the first desk. and the students dutifully took out their bags. And you look at the cow. Well, Stone has a shorter, a voice from the bottom desks. She is poor and starving. She needs money. The spotted girl took the money, I'm telling you. When Andrews came to Emma, she also calmly put her battered backpack because she had nothing to fear and was used to insults. The man opened the bag, groped for a moment with his hand, and suddenly cried out. He pulled out his hand, in which he was clutching the purse. "It's not yours. It belongs to Miss Logan. Cheeky, you think you're stealing from my school? Well, I'm going to give you a hard time right now." The guard hung over a girl who didn't understand. "It's not mine, and I didn't take anything. It's a mistake, a mistake." Emma trembled. She didn't take that wallet. How it could have happened, she didn't understand. "There's our thief! Shame on you! Thief! Come here, thief!" the teacher almost screamed. Poor Emma didn't understand anything. She dutifully approached Miss Logan, who wouldn't stop screaming. And when the girl looked at her classmates, she saw that several girls were almost laughing. They had bullied her before, but that was the last straw. They framed her, and she would never prove anything. These girls purposely stole money from the teacher and planted on her to shame and humiliate her. It was the end. Emma didn't understand why she was so hated. She just stood there, swallowing tears, thinking about how she wanted to disappear so that no one would ever hurt her or yell at her again. And these girls were pointing their fingers at her and laughing. Emma Stone got used to humiliation and challenging life. The girl's mother died when the baby was not even 5 years old, and her father left the family earlier. The girl was raised by her grandmother, who was always ill. Money was always scarce, and Emma was accustomed to poverty and constant criticism and humiliation from others. Older girls always beat her and called her names for her clothes. She lived on the outskirts of town in a small house that didn't even have proper water. Emma always dreamed of breaking out of poverty and buying herself and Grandma the best. She suffered from childhood from a rare disease, vitiligo. Emma's dark body was covered with bright spots of various shapes and sizes. Only her pretty face was untouched. Big, kind eyes, beautiful features. For some reason, nobody noticed it. Everyone saw only skimpy clothes and hateful spots. The girl tried to wear closed clothes, even in the heat, but it did not help her. Her classmates constantly bullied her and called her names. They only called her Cow, and no one called Emma by name. The school's teachers turned a blind eye to all the injustices, and the old grandmother couldn't do anything. She cried in the evenings, seeing the suffering of her beloved granddaughter. The girl often dreamed that her wealthy and successful father would appear one day and take them out of poverty. But Dad didn't show up. Her grandmother was finding it increasingly difficult to maintain them financially, and she was often sick. Emma struggled to help her grandmother, and she took a part-time job. The money theft at school was the last straw, and Grandma moved Emma to another school. The school children met the girl better there, but she also did not want to communicate with anyone. The teenagers avoided Emma because she was not like them. The girl accepted that no one wanted to communicate with her and be friends with her, and she became even more isolated. She wanted to leave this city. And then another new girl appeared in the class. Rita, the red-haired chatterbox, quickly won everyone's love. She was friendly and outgoing. And the main thing is, for some reason, she decided she had to help the quiet Emma in everything. It was like Rita had never seen Emma's poverty or stranglehold. She was okay with her. The girl gave her beautiful clothes, made her get a fancy haircut, and did not hide her body under robes. Rita first told Emma about her beauty and offered to go to one of the modeling agencies to try her hand. Emma refused for a long time because she didn't believe in herself or her abilities. But after high school, the girls finally decided to leave their little town. Rita went to college, and Emma decided to work part-time and then go to college. The friends promised to call each other every day. Emma got a job in a small flower shop. She still dreamed of a successful future and a promising career. Rita got the girl to believe in herself. Life was running smoothly until another customer came into the store one day. The man picked out the flowers for a long time, but then he went to Emma and talked to her. He said his name was Mr. Porter, and he owned a modeling agency in New York City, and he was just impressed by her appearance. He said he was willing to sign her right there because he saw a lot of potentials and work for her. And her peculiarity, the girl was wearing a t-shirt and there were spots on her hands, would become her chip. Just imagine, dear, the man smiled sweetly to the girl, all the world podiums will be conquered. You are so beautiful. Contracts will fall on you. You will become rich and will not sit in this God-forsaken place. Such a face should see the whole world. Emma was surprised. She didn't know what to do. She said she needed to consult with her friend, but Mr. Porter was insistent and said that the time to agree was now. The girl asked for a chance to think for at least a few days. She understood that this could be her opportunity, because Rita always talked about her place in modeling with such a beautiful face and figure. She called her friend. Rita freaked out and asked Emma not to go anywhere because the man could be a con artist. But Emma already believed him and had a chance to change her life. Rita begged the girl not to do anything stupid, but Emma just hung up. She made her own decision for the first time, and she was very proud of it. She was a little embarrassed in front of her friend, but the girl decided to make it up to her later when wealth and success became apparent. And then she agreed to go with this man, although she did not know him. She believed that the new world of the big city could give her wealth and glory. She wanted to make her grandmother's life happy and carefree. When they came to New York, he put a girl up in a small apartment on the outskirts of town and sometimes took her to some weird auditions. Then, Mr. Porter started talking about how she needed money to do a good job and had to borrow it from someone. Then he said the apartment had to be paid for, and she would have to do questionable advertising. Porter was rude to her. He could be gone for days, leaving the poor girl practically without food. She had no one to turn to, so he took her phone away. Emma was afraid of a man. He could intimidate and crush them psychologically. Emma realized the man had deceived her and taken advantage of her naivety. The girl worked hard, but hardly saw the money she earned. Mr. Porter kept reminding her they had a contract that gave him most of the profits. Emma signed it there in her little town. She didn't read the papers, trusting Porter's words. The girl had to take any job. Porter was in control and wouldn't let Emma keep the money. He began to humiliate and intimidate her. And Porter started drinking and getting handsy. Emma was on the verge of desperation. The last straw was that he wouldn't let her go to Grandma. The girl called about the house neighbors and found that Grandma was very ill, but Porter forbade her to go, again recalling the contract. It helped the girl in this situation that the same day the hateful man was hit by a car. Porter got drunk and crossed the road in the wrong place. The universe took pity on the poor girl. Their home number was clogged in his cell phone as an emergency, so Emma discovered that Porter was in a coma. She came to the hospital, where she guessed the man was her uncle. The nurse gave him his belongings, including a purse with money. The girl took them without hesitation and went to her grandmother's. She was with Grandma for a couple of days, then died quietly in her sleep. The girl was inconsolable. She blamed herself for everything and didn't know how to go on. She had nowhere to go but to stay in their poor house. She didn't even know who owned that apartment in New York and didn't want to go back there. And then she got a call from her cell phone, which they gave away along with Porter's things. "Hello, Emma," Rita's quiet voice sounded. "I know about your grandmother. I'm so sorry. Why didn't you call me? Because I could help you. Where have you gone? I was so looking forward to your call. I will come tomorrow and we will discuss and decide." Rita came. She helped organize the funeral, and then Emma told her about all her misadventures. Rita was shocked. She blamed herself for not being able to hold Emma. The girls cried for a long time in a hug. Both knew that the two would be easier for them. The girls returned to New York to Emma's apartment. When the girl turned on the answering machine on her phone, she heard that Porter had died. Emma was ashamed, but she felt relieved. Now she was free. Leaving this little apartment, Emma looked at herself in the hall mirror. Her face was slipping, and the spots were more visible against a background of stress, but there was hope for the best in her eyes. The girl promised herself that now she would start a new happy life for her and Grandma. It's been a couple of months. Rita introduced the girl to one of the scouts of a famous modeling agency. He was delighted with Emma's appearance and immediately offered her an entire 5-year contract. This work was not like the one she had to do before. Beautiful places and professional photographers' trips worldwide. Couturier adored Emma's texture, and the offers came in. Emma was incredibly popular, and she had her TV show where she helped young models become successful. She loved this class, and then she published a book about her hard life and became a world bestseller. Emma didn't believe any of this was happening to her. That girl in the rags can now afford to buy anything from a fancy and expensive boutique. Wealth hasn't spoiled her. She was just as humble and kind and wanted to help many people. Emma knew how hard it could be to have no one to help you. She also made Rita her assistant. She often remembered her grandmother and wished she had seen such success. The girl wanted to give as much happiness as possible to those who needed it. She opened several schools for poor children, did a lot of charity work, and helped people with the same disease as her. One day, Emma's agent told her that a fashion magazine wanted to interview her. Emma was sitting in her dressing room when the blonde woman entered the room. Emma thought she looked familiar, but couldn't figure out where they might have met. And when the journalist asked what the secret of her success was, Emma said with a smile, "You know, I have spots on my body, and I'm not ashamed of them. It is much worse when a person has a stain on his soul from what he does to others, and he is not ashamed. Be honest. Do not hurt others. Be beautiful not only outside, let the beauty come from within. I love this world, even if it is hard and painful. That's when you are guaranteed to succeed. Then the universe will give you happiness." The journalist looked away and whispered, "Forgive me. Forgive us all." It turns out that one of the girls once framed poor Emma by planting her teacher's wallet. And now the girl was very ashamed and realized they could have ruined poor Emma's life for good. And Emma forgave them. After so many trials, she didn't become evil and treacherous. She just wanted happiness and peace for everyone.